This episode of the Western Outdoor News Podcast is brought to you by WON Charters. If you haven't already, check out our charter list. Coming up is a 2-day out on the Pacific Islander, leaving at Cisco's in Channel Islands Harbor. Come and fish with a Western Outdoor News crew member and Captain Rick Russell aboard the Pacific Islander. For more information, visit wonews.com.
It's a gnarly road. I mean, it's a white knuckler. It ascends 6,000 feet in a few minutes.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the Western Outdoor News Podcast. This is episode 22. In this episode, we'll be talking with Mike Stevens about his recent trip to the Eastern Sierra.
Another thing we did is we hiked into the backcountry some and went after brook trout, and that's another way to do it.
Little sidebar from that, we'll talk to our good friend Colin, who was targeting golden trout around the same time. We then get to have a quick experience with one of the anglers down at the Yellowtail Jackpot. They fished for bluefin tuna most of the time and ended up sweeping the side pots with one large fish.
He headed for the horizon right away. A lot of giving and taking.
And without further ado, let's just drop right in with Mike Stevens talking about the Eastern Sierra.
And this is something I've written about in the past. I'm going to write about it again because it was on the old website and now it's gone. And it's evolved since then.
Okay.
But me and my brother call it Day Zero.
Day zero.
Yeah, my dad usually gets the condo for a week, usually Saturday to Saturday. Years ago, when we got jobs and cars, my brother and I were like, well, why don't we just sneak up a day early? So that first day is no longer a travel day.
Yeah.
The first day is a fishing day. So we would stay at the different small hotels anywhere between Lone Pine and Bishop. So we would get there in the early afternoon, fish some, get dinner, drink some beers, get up in the morning, fish somewhere else, down in the Owens Valley before heading up to Mammoth. And then that becomes our base camp for the rest of the week. But there's no set plan other than, if we're going to hike somewhere, if we're going to do a good hike, we want it later in the week. So we've acclimated, to the altitude.
Yeah.
But usually, 90% of the time we decide around breakfast, where we're about to go.
What is breakfast like?
It depends. Usually it's whatever we can hammer down fast.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you guys get out of the house out of the condo pretty early.
We do not. Like
okay.
If we get out by
gentlemen's start.
Yeah. If we get out by like 7 or 8, that's kind of early.
Yeah.
And a lot of times my dad, I hang back. He'll be like, I'll find you. Just go. Just go.
All right. So, where did you guys kind of start your trip? Where'd you guys start fishing? Well, where'd you guys fish on? Well, this is it. Day zero.
Yeah, day zero was a little different this year. We've been staying in Lone Pine for the last few years, but we decided to take it all the way up to Bishop.
Okay.
With the new regs, I guess the new regs wouldn't matter right now, but we like fishing the canal, one of the canals that come off the Owens. We went up to South Lake and we fished some of the Edison plant ponds.
Okay.
It's just spots on Bishop Creek where the Edison company will put up a dam and you have a little pond. It's just like quick hitter, jump out of the truck.
Make a few casts, catch
see
a couple.
if anybody's home and move on to the next one. So we fished Bishop Creek, South Lake on that day. And Bishop Creek was actually the best. We got some browns out of there. Everywhere else was pretty slow. South Lake's super low. South Lake's about 30 feet low, and they don't even have the docks in the water yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but Jared Smith, who manages the marina operation there, he's expecting it to fill up a little bit by the end of the month. So hopefully they get those boat rentals going.
Yeah, with not much snow melt this year, it's been, I'm sure, different. And we're going to kind of get into that. Some other things that are different up there is the stocking schedules aren't happening. What's going on with that?
That's something that we really noticed. We don't really chase state stocked fish, but we fish where they are.
Yeah.
So, you're weeding through all these smaller trout to get what we're looking for, but those smaller trout just weren't there. Everywhere we went, there wasn't a place where we stacked them up. And usually we get them in the upper Owens and Tioga Lake and Ellery Lake and Rock Creek Lake and the lakes in the Mammoth Basin. The smaller fish just weren't around. They're still stocking the big Oregon fish, but it's gonna be more of a quality over quantity thing this year.
That's kind of been what we've been noticing too. Just pictures that are coming in. We're not getting the family photos with stringers full of DFG stalkers.
Right. I maybe
stalkers.
saw one limit of state stocked fish the whole time.
So they are still stocking, just not as much, obviously.
Yeah, the Hot Creek hatchery is now shut down like the other hatcheries are, and that one only stocked Inyo and Mono counties. So that again, that's just the smaller stocked fish. We've talked about it on previous podcasts. The counties themselves, some of the resorts, some nonprofit organizations are importing fish from Oregon. They're the same fish as the old Alpers fish.
Okay.
They're just coming from Oregon. They're premium fish that are 2 to 5 pounds on average. Mm-hmm. Another thing we did is we hiked into the backcountry some and went after brook trout, and that's another way to do it as far as, getting your numbers up.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about it here sitting in the office, and that's something that going to the Eastern Sierra, don't go too often anymore. But when I used to, that was our number one was looking for brooks.
Yeah. Even when the Department of Fish and Wildlife was stocking trout, they were averaging 2 fish to the pound. So they're pretty small. I mean, that's 8-ounce fish on average. And that's how big brookies are, if not bigger. So why
And they fight harder.
Yeah, they fight harder. I mean, I have never eaten one, but I hear they taste better. They'll eat anything. Yeah. And in a lot of the places they are, it would do the lake, good by taking a few out of them.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why they're all that small.
Because they're pretty predatory. I mean, obviously they eat anything that'll fit in their mouth.
Yeah, and they're all fighting for a limited food supply, and they're only able to, tee off on bugs and stuff, and when the ice isn't there. So it's a small feeding window, and they don't get that much to eat. So thinning out the herd, will do a lot of these lakes some good.
All right. And then from there, I guess, anything else you want to add to that whole, things are getting tough up there. It's not an easy fishery anymore.
I would never not go, especially if it's, personally, like I said, I don't fish for the stocked state fish. But for somebody who normally does, who's used to dunking night crawlers and getting an easy limit, that's just not going to happen as quick as usual this year. So I would, for one, fish those lakes that are getting those premium Oregon fish. So it's most of the bigger popular lakes, like the June Lake Loop, the Mammoth Lakes Basin, Convict Lake.
Stuff with kind of resorty attraction.
Yeah, they're all still getting stocks. They're not getting stocked as often as state fish do, but they get a lot of them. So they're in there, but another thing is they don't really publicize when they arrive.
Which is kind of a good thing.
I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
You don't get
because you've already set your trip up, and you don't want to be bummed out because it happened a week ago.
Yeah.
So, another way to get after it is to, fish places that aren't so dependent on being stocked. So, along with the backcountry, there's places like Lake Crowley. Mm-hmm. Now, at the end of every season, at the very end, Crowley always stocks subcatchables, like 2 to 4 inch trout.
Yeah.
So they can season in there and they can kind of become almost like a wild fish.
I've seen them there. I've been there in October. That's when I like to fish up there, and I've seen the little ones.
Yeah.
And I've scooped them up with my hand. They'll be on the surface cruising. I've seen them eating stuff off the surface.
Yeah, the staffers told me they do that every year.
Wow.
And and they also have the Owens River going into it. Owens River kind of acts as its own little hatchery. Because the rainbows and the cuts and the browns,
the big browns,
and places like that, you never hear about people asking when was the last time Crowley got stocked, because you can always catch fish in Crowley.
Yeah.
But
did you guys fish Crowley while you're up there?
This time we didn't. I definitely will in October. I did it last October. It was a great time. This time we kind of just stuck to our rotation. We went everywhere from the June Lake Loop to up Tioga Pass. Didn't go all the way to Bridgeport. Virginia Lakes was exception. It stood out a little bit.
Okay.
We fished the whole backside not the whole backside, but kind of the back end of the big lake, and we caught more brooks than rainbows. So there it is right there. Like, between me and my brother, we had maybe 12 brooks each in a couple hours and a couple rainbows. Yeah. But that was more than everywhere else. And again, it's catching brooks.
Yeah. So be prepared to cast and wind.
Yeah.
And be prepared to throw some lures and different. You're not going to just be bait fishing out there, it sounds like.
Yeah, and getting away from, the marinas and stuff like that. If you can get around to a back of the lake where there's an inlet, that's where you pick up the, more of the wild fish.
Yeah. So I guess to take away from this, you're not going up there right now to catch rainbows necessarily that have been stocked. You're going up there to look for these fish that live up there year round and have a different tenacity, really.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of fishing.
Even if they are stocked fish, you got holdovers, you've got browns, brooks.
And a fish that's been in one of those lakes or reservoir for a year is a totally different fish than a fish that just came from eating pellets at the hatchery.
Right. It's going to be a different deal up there until those hatcheries are back online. I don't think, supposedly the state stocking isn't completely shut down to the area. So, they've said they were going to import some from Northern California hatcheries and kind of, take from other areas. But, that. So
what did happen to our hatcheries down here?
Well, originally they had a virus in 3 hatcheries further south. And those also stocked the Sierra, but also a lot of Southern California. The Hot Creek hatchery, this just happened a few weeks ago, where they detected the same, I believe it was the same virus. It was some kind of virus they definitely didn't want to stock.
Yeah.
I haven't heard what they've done, as a result of it. I haven't heard if they euthanized it all yet and did the same thing as the other hatcheries, because they had to wipe out everything they
had. And they got to start from scratch, clean the tanks, everything, right?
Yeah, they've done that. They've got small fish in there. They're just not going to be stockable for a while. This time around, there's been talk that because of what they learned from the first few hatcheries and those problems, that they kind of know how to combat it. So they're going to try different things before they wipe it out. But it's definitely not stocking.
Yeah. So they're working on just getting a base, a base of small trout in there right now, and then regrowing what they've. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. That's interesting. I kind of had heard about the virus and stuff, but I hadn't really gotten into it with anyone or really did too much research on it. So I'm glad that we got to talk about that too.
Other than that, it's the South Lake was super low, but the creeks and everything looked just a little bit low. It was far from unfishable.
How far north did you guys end up getting? Tioga, I heard.
Yeah,
didn't go past
either
there.
Tioga Lake or Virginia Lakes, whatever one's furthest north. We did not get to Bridgeport.
Okay,
but the lakes were in good shape. The creeks were running well. The peak runoff is already behind us. Probably happened in May sometime.
Yeah, it got hot quick out there, huh?
Yeah, so I would expect.
How was weather? I heard you guys had a snow day.
Yeah, it was nice for a few days, and then the wind played a huge role. Like, we had a couple days where, we fished through it, but it was just because we were there. If I lived up there, there's no way I would have fished on that day. Yeah. And there was even a little dusting of snow one night. So it was different. I was a little underprepared. I only brought like a hoodie, and I could have needed some more stuff. But right now they're having a heat wave, though.
Yeah, so I know it's hot up there.
That's the deal up there.
What was any standout catches? What was the biggest fish you guys got for the trip? Anything giant?
It's all relative, man. The day we were up in the backcountry, there's a couple like 12-inch brooks
that were just,
and that was cool. It's a brook trout. That's a good size. Nothing you're going to weigh in pounds or nothing threatening 20 inches or anything like that.
Hey, that was my favorite thing, was just chasing the brooks. And I know a lot of guys, we had just talked to another friend of Western Outdoor News, Colin, about chasing the golden trout, but I'd almost rather catch brooks.
They're a lot more widespread and easy to get to.
They're easy to get to, and they're fun to catch, and you could still get pretty far back into some creeks where it's like, you live up here? Like, how did you get here?
Right. Yeah, they're everywhere. You run into brooks even in places where, if you read the old books saying which fish are in which lakes, they're not listed, but you're catching them in there. So
and that's a non-native as well, right?
Well, a lot of people, argue over native versus wild.
Yeah,
they're not native because they're from the East Coast. Yeah, it's the same as a German brown. Obviously, it's not native, but they were hatched there and they grew up there, so they're wild fish. It's not native to the region.
So, are the only native fish Goldens?
Goldens, and there's some
Cutthroat.
species of Yeah, there is one of the cutthroat, I believe, and there are some basically coastal steelhead.
Yeah.
Kern River rainbow, depending on how far south in this area you go. There's Kern River rainbows that are considered native to the area.
Okay. That's very cool. Yeah, it's something that I guess a lot of people don't realize is, they think they're going up there and catching these trout in these pristine creeks and stuff, but a lot of this stuff was put there by the Department of Fish and Wildlife and by wasn't it the who was stalking in the beginning when they were doing those like airdrops and stuff?
That was the Department of Fish and Wildlife doing the backcountry airdrops, but you could take it all the way back to like, original settlers taking them up in coffee cans
and putting them in creeks.
Yeah, they're up there looking for gold or whatever, and they can make their own little food supply, I guess.
Yeah,
but
totally.
That's how they got up there the first time originally.
Well, that's awesome. Anything else you want to add about the Eastern Sierra or anything else coming up there?
Yeah, I would just say it's people get discouraged about the state thing, and the chatter gets kind of out of control, and people say they are not stocking the Eastern Sierra. The Eastern Sierra is absolutely getting stocked. It's just different.
It's a different style of
You're
stocking.
missing out on the 2 fish per pound, state fish, which, in most cases, people would rather catch the bigger ones anyway.
Yeah.
It's almost like those fish break up the time between the better fish. It's like you're not weeding through fish to get the better ones.
Yeah.
That element of it's just not there. So I would just have people, adjust their expectations and their game plans. If you're willing to hike less than a mile, you can get into a lake full of brook trout with nobody else on it. Or if if you're fishing a creek that normally gets stocked, if you look upstream in areas that are harder to get to that they can't get a stock
not in the
truck
campground.
Right. Yeah. Get upstream of the campgrounds, get away from all that. And that's when you're going to run into the browns and stuff that are, they're not there because a truck put them there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
it's always, when we go fishing up there, it was always, we're trying to catch the browns and the brooks, and it was like you said, the rainbows passed the time for sure. It was nice.
Yeah,
it's fun catching them.
And those big Oregon rainbows are awesome too. Oh,
are they putting those in the creek, or are they just putting those in the big lakes?
I know they are between Bridgeport and June Lake. I don't know if they're doing it south of June Lake.
Okay.
Just because
of the amount of water.
Bridgeport is one budget, or Mono County is one budget.
Okay.
And then Mammoth has its own budget, and I think Mammoth only does the Lakes Basin. Convict Lake Resort pays for their own. I'm not sure about the creeks down there, but June Lake has its own net pen, to where they have a net pen at a dock full of the bigger fish, and they kind of just let them out whenever they want.
Just a few here, a few there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instead of just letting them all get dumped in at once.
That's kind of a cool way to do it.
Yeah, June Lake is definitely a spot I would focus on this year, because that's going on. They have their self-sustaining cutthroat population. Like, you can catch big cuts in June just like you can in Crowley.
Now, when you're fishing these lakes, are you usually fishing by foot? Are you renting boats ever? What's your guys'
Most
plan?
of the time we're on foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I've always done it. I've brought a boat up a couple times myself. I've never rented a boat up there.
Yeah, I mean, Crowley is one place I'll rent a boat. I've done it at Convict, but most of the time, we're on foot, because most of the time we're not at a lake for half a day very often. We're just bouncing around.
Yeah, moving from spot to spot.
Right. And we don't want to be stuck to a lake because we spent however much on a boat.
Even when I brought the boat, I remember being stuck in that regard. Is we got to Crowley, we fished Crowley in the boat, and then we're like, well, we want to go do this. Well, there's a boat attached to us.
Yeah.
We got to find a parking spot for the boat if we want to get up that road.
Right. Right.
So... Well, Mike, it was great talking, and let's just jump right into it with Colin here. He was chasing Goldens.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the past, we'd hit upper portions of the kern and little, fingers off of it, and had no luck at all. And finally, we decided to just go straight to the source, which it's a bit of a drive. Any way you want to get to the upper Sierras where they're native. But Highway 395 toward Lone Pine, and kind of the most direct route to get up in that area is a road called Horseshoe Meadow Road. And it's a gnarly road. I mean, it's It's a white knuckler. It ascends 6,000 feet in a few minutes. You want to be like, hydrated and nourished, or you'll get altitude sickness. You'll at least get the beginning, headaches and a little bit of nausea if you're not ready for it. But it's a beautiful drive. It's your textbook switchback, and you're actually at the top. But you're at that 6,000 mark at the top of that road in 20 minutes. It happens quick, and then you dive down into the Sierras, and that area, Cottonwood Lakes and Horseshoe Meadow. That whole area, there's creeks and streams all over up there. And I had always heard that that's where you want to go, and I've seen that switchback road from Highway 395 so many times and always gone, wow, that is a crazy road. I don't know that I ever want to drive on that.
Is that actually a paved road or not?
It is a paved road now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure it wasn't at one point.
Oh, no way. But it is a county maintained road. And once you're up on it, you're like, okay, this is doable. I've got a big old Chevy truck. So one more reason why I was a little hesitant. But
yeah,
I mean, once you're halfway up on it and you're looking at the Owens Valley, it's breathtaking. I mean, you got to keep your eyes on the road, but it is an amazing view up there for sure.
Yeah. And then, so how'd you guys kind of go about, I guess, targeting them? You got up to, obviously to the elevation you needed to be at. And then how were you guys fishing for them?
Well, we just did some research and reading notes online. My son works at a tackle shop, so we talked to a few people on what to do and how to do it. All the rules and regulations they're very gray and kind of convoluted, but there's a new set that came out in March of this year and basically says barbless hooks, artificial lures, no bait, nothing scented or anything like that. And it actually states that you can keep 2. I don't know why anybody would want to, because they're not a very big fish. But so we found a parking spot, and in these campgrounds there, which, they're walk-in campgrounds with bear boxes basically. And we packed our stuff up in the bear boxes and we put our backpacks and poles on, and we hiked back into the meadows back there. And as soon as we started seeing some streams, we were seeing fish and weren't really sure what they were, and dropping, like I had a little crappie jig with a single barbless hook on it, and my son had a rooster tail, and we were just throwing them, and they were interested, but as soon as they'd see our shadows, they'd get spooked pretty quick. But they were interested in what we were offering. And finally we were getting bit. A little tip for myself and anybody else next time, small hooks, they're really small fish. A big one, the 100% pure Goldens are like 8-10 inches at best. So they've got small mouths, so small.
Yeah,
hooks, definitely.
No, I've done it once before, and I've only caught in one my whole life. And how many did you guys end up landing that day?
Well, let me start by saying we lost about 20.
Yeah.
Because I had always wanted to get one. That's our state fish, it's our freshwater fish. They're beautiful. They're native to California. So it has always been important for me to get that on my list of fish. But I caught and landed one, and obviously photographed the heck out of it before we released it. But it's catching those little fish like that in those little creeks. It's an art, I've realized, because they're small bodies of water. And when they see a shadow come up, they're spooked, they're out of there. So you really need to sneak up, and I'm not a fly fisherman, but I can. And I just thought, wow, that would be really hard targeting these little narrow little creeks. Now, mind you, we had a dry winter, so I'm sure other seasons, provide a lot more water, would be, more surface area and target. But yeah, we landed one. I did get a bunch of really cool pictures of them. It was so exciting, but like I learned a lot, and when you get bit from one of those little guys, it's like, oh, get him, I get when he popped out of the water and spit the hook and dove right back in,
Yeah, totally. Especially when you're fishing barbless, it's hard to keep tension on something so small. You need such a light rod, and fishing such light gear just to keep them pinned on.
So true.
Yeah, you want that 8 or 10 incher to actually pull drag. at least get the rod bending, so you have a shock absorber for when they do try to jump. Man. Yeah,
a 2-pound test, and I thought I was going a little heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did you guys do any other fishing while you're up that way? Did you guys fish for any rainbows or anything else in the creeks? I know the stocking isn't really happening up there. So a lot's changed, and it's kind of a different game up there than it has been in the past. And we're going to be talking with Mike, our other editor, about that. He was up there kind of around the same time you were, actually.
Yeah. Well, we were fishing with, trout-like lures. I mean, like I said, rooster tails, Castmasters, Super Dupers, all the old school proven stuff. And then little crappie jigs that my son wanted to try, which is great because that's what I ended up landing mine on. So we were fishing for whatever would bite is the short answer to that. It was hard to really see, once again, what was in there. Always, obviously just trout, whether there was some rainbows in there, I don't know, but they were all little creek trout. And as you know, I mean, those types of fish, they grow to what their surroundings will allow them to, so they were all little guys. I mean, 10-inch fish was a big fish in that area. And pretty much it looked like they were mostly goldens from what we saw.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
It seems like when you get to a certain height, you kind of get past the majority of the brook trout and things like that.
Yep.
And you start to just see those goldens. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. We came back down after 2 days when we hit the Owens, and we caught some bass and stuff down around Lone Pine and Independence area. But
yeah, that's always fun to do too on your way back.
Yeah,
people don't realize the bass fishery that's out there.
I know. I mean, there's so many great fingers along 395. I mean, I love that highway so much, all the way from like Little Lake, up into Mammoth and June and all that whole area. There's so much history, so much fishing, and I don't know. I love it. I love that whole area so much.
Totally. Hey, well, Colin, thanks so much for sharing your story about the golden. And hey, man, hopefully we hear from you again.
Awesome. Thank you guys. You guys have a great day.
And now for a quick angler experience at the Yellowtail Jackpot.
It was a very long day. We started a little south of the 371, wasn't metering anything, came back up the line to the 371, got on some schools, no bites. Then we stopped on this one, and we could see they were big marks. Another boat came in on our stern, started to chum line, and that's when I got bit on this guy. 80-pound outfit, an Avet HX wide on 80-pound fluoro. He headed for the horizon right away. We took chase. We probably chased him a good half mile before we boated him. About 35 minutes on the fight. Given and taken. A lot of given and taken. And great gaff, 4 feet from the boat, right on the surface, laying on the side. Excellent gaff by my partners on the boat. No twitch whatsoever. Took 4 of us to drag him through the door.
Yeah, it's a big fish.
It's a good sized fish. Yeah. And we ended up calling it on the Bluefin and ran back down to the 425. Kelp patty hopped all the way down there. On the outside, kelp patty hopped up back the way back on the inside, and we just found dry kelp after dry kelp after dry kelp. So I don't know what happened to all that yellowtail. Last couple months I've been avoiding kelps to not catch yellowtail. Now when I want to catch one,
they're not there.
They're not there.
Gosh, well, you pulled in this gigantic tuna. Hopefully it holds, and good luck. We'll see you at the award ceremony.
Great, thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the Western Outdoor News Podcast. This was episode 22. Don't forget to visit wonews.com for that upcoming charter on the Pacific Islander out of Cisco Sport Fishing.